Welcome back, and sorry I'm a bit late. I just got done allegedly committing felonies on the public road, and yes, I did record it. Sorry, it rained for like 8 months straight. I wasn't able to record many rides. I just did. I need to edit it, and then it will be up relatively soon here. But I came back, and someone told me there are sales, and I was like, oh god damn it, here we go again. But at least there are some decent vehicles on sale this time around, and as per usual, I will cover the planes first, then I'll cover the tanks, and I have someone to tell me what tanks to buy. He's credible. Kfir Cnard and Hazey, you might know them, they are good. Because personally, I don't have a clue. Don't forget to use a discount code. You won't get an additional discount, but you'll get a decal. You'll steal some of Guy's money, and it's a great way to support your favorite creator. Let's get started with the first one. We have the Phantom F4S. Now the Phantom F4S is still going to be a Phantom with good missiles. Now it's not going to be as sad as something like the F4F-Ice, but it's still going to be a Phantom with good missiles. Now with the multipad only being 50 meters, the AIM-7Fs are going to be a lot more potent than they once were. They are quite hard to notch now because it's guided by the plane radar and not a Fox 3, so these missiles are pretty deadly. That is kind of it. If you want a gun, you need an extra gun port, which adds a lot of drag and weight on the airframe that is already kind of mid. And the heat seekers are also not all that fantastic. So this is going to be one of those planes where it's going to be a decent grind up because it has a good set of head-on missiles basically. And it's at a pretty decent BR. At 11.3 now, there is not many 12.3s, so you don't get many full up tiers. And when you do, it is mostly the F-15A, which yes, is going to absolutely rock your shit. But keep in mind, it's going to be always on your team. There's only going to be 4 of them in the enemy team at most. And in that regard, it's going to be somewhat okay. Now 12.0 and 11.7 are still going to be quite a tough pill for this thing. But it's by no means unflyable. And it's a pretty damn good grind up. Now there are better alternatives like the F5C, in my opinion. But we'll get to that in a minute. And then we have the MiG-23ML. And the MiG-23ML actually just got nerfed, as in today. Not the nerf that I was mentioning a few weeks ago, it got nerfed again today. And the flight performance was the main thing that was good about the MiG-23ML. It's of course backed up by the R24R and the R24T. If you are not sure what to run, I would say just get the R24R because the radar is pretty decent. The R60Ms are really not that fantastic, but they get the job done. But I mostly say that because before they get the job done because your airframe is at least pretty good. Pretty damn good. I'm not sure how it is right now. I cannot give you a verdict on the MiG-23ML. I recommend you to try it out in a test flight, see how it feels. Personally, I haven't flown it in today's meta. I'm not sure if the thing is even live as I'm recording this, but there is another nerf coming if it's not already on the live server right now. And talking is hard and I am just stuttering all over the place. But yeah, be wary. It might be worse than you see in all the videos. It used to be pretty good. I cannot talk about it right now. I can just tell you how it is. Whether it's good or not, I honestly can't tell you. Then we have the Tornado IDS, and I'm not a psychic. I'm not sure how bad the MiG-23 is, but I don't need to be a psychic to know that the Tornado IDS is absolutely cheeks. Now, if you are gonna rush in the bomb, yeah, you're gonna get some decent results. But the Tornado is one of the worst planes that you can play at this BR. And on top of that, you're gonna be grinding one of the worst planes at the BR at the top tier. The F4F-Ice is not worth your money. And if you need to buy something like the Tornado, I would say just skip it. Now Germany might get something like the Eurofighter Typhoon like as early as the end of this year. I don't count on it, but you never know with War Thunder. But by then, they might actually get another premium that isn't as bad as this one is. So I would say skip this. And just pray there is going to be a better premium down the road. Because buying this for 35, you might say it's on sale. Even on sale, I will say this is not worth your money. Unless, of course, you want to just go fly straight in, bomb a base. Maybe aim 9L some A4B bots in the middle of the map and then die. If that's fun to you, be my guest. It is decently consistent as a grinder. But please don't say I didn't warn you. Then we have the Mirage F1C-200, and this thing is actually pretty okay. The flight model got a big update a while ago. My last video has the updated flight model, and it's actually pretty good to fly now. Now the Magic 2s are very good right now, and at 11.3 it's in the same boat as with the MiG-23ML and the F4S, where the matchmaker is pretty forgiving. Now the issue is that basically only the Magic 2s are worth it on this plane. The Defas, while they hit pretty decently hard, they are annoying to aim. They're slow, they have bad accuracy, and overall they just aren't that good of a gun. And then the 530s are, you basically one chaff them away every time. So in that regard, you're basically only going to have the two magics, which are essentially guaranteed kill if you know when and where to fire them. If you're not directly behind someone, or you know where their flare dispensers are, you can just kind of arc it around. And if you watch my IRCCM video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then we have the Saab J35XS. Now the Saab J35XS is kind of in the same boat as the FRS, where the flight model isn't that fantastic anymore. Yes, you heard that right. The Draken, or the Draken, also got nerfed a little bit a while ago, and it doesn't fly nearly as well as it did, but you still have 6 A9Js, which are not the best missiles, but they definitely are okay enough, especially at the BR. The plane is fast enough, and you have some countermeasures. Now it's only 12. It's going to be the best Draken that you can fly, but is it worth $35? I think it is, mainly because Sweden doesn't have much that you can buy or talisman at high tiers, and for only 35 it is pretty consistent. Just don't expect it to be the danger Dorito that it was before. Be careful with the flight model. Other than that, it's a pretty solid kit. Now yes, it only gets one gun, but the Draken isn't really about the gun, mainly also because the flight model isn't that fantastic anymore. Even when the flight model was good, the gun still wasn't the main killing power, and sacrificing one gun for flares and 2 extra missiles will always be worth it, at least in my eyes. Then we have the A10A Thunderbolt. Now I'm not sure if this is going to be up tiered or down tiered in the future when it comes to the dynamic battle ratings. This might be subject to change, but as it is right now in Araby, it's too slow. And I don't mean that in the sense for air-to-air combat. I mean, it takes you too long to even get to the middle of the map. By the time you start ground pounding, the game is mostly already over, and you're either going to get swarmed, or your team just cleaned them up and the tickets start ticking down before you even reach any tanks. So in that sense, I don't think this is a fantastic grinder when the situation does arise. Yes, you can kill 50 ground units with only the gun in like the span of 3 minutes. Completely valid. But this doesn't happen very often because the games are closed out so quickly that you never really get to do any of that. Then we have the Su-25, and I think that the Su-25 is in a slightly better boat, but I'm not sure if this is worth your money. This is one of those attackers that is not fantastic at attacking, but it's still an attacker, so it's also not very fantastic at air-to-air. Now yes, it does get 2 R60Ms, but it's not at that low BR anymore where you get down-tiered constantly, and you get to all the aspect missile people that don't have flares. It still happens, you're probably still going to get decent results with it, but it's one of those brain dead grinders that's in the exact same boat as the A10. It is a bit quicker, and you will be able to actually reach the battlefield, so you might actually be able to get a little bit more RP out of it. But again, this might also be subject to change with the battle ratings, because it is an attacker with all aspects, so it might go down or up in the future. We just aren't sure as of right now. Now we have the F5C, and I think that this is the main opponent, I guess we can call it that, to the FRS. If you want to choose one, I would say get the F5C. It's very safe at 10.3. The matchmaker is super forgiving, the plane is quite forgiving, but keep in mind, the missiles don't do the work for you, and you need to actually fly the plane. You can't just run away from people, you need to dogfight people, you need to be able to aim the guns, and it is kind of awkward to play, or awkward to aim, I should say. But it is pretty good to pick up, especially if you are used to props. This is one of those more traditional planes where it actually flies like a plane and you're not just fiddling with the systems. So my summary would be either get the FRS if you want to learn missiles, missile combat, and just try to finish with the radar. Fly the F5C if you are more of a prop player and you enjoy that prop early jet, you know, that combat where you actually have to put in a little bit of BFM to get your kills instead of clicking your radar. Now there's nothing wrong with either, it's just going to be a little bit of preference. Then we have the MiG-21bis Lazur M, and if you really want to grind the FRF, this is going to be much better than the Tornado IDS. It's a MiG-21bis, 6 R60s or 4 R60s and 2 R13s, yeah, or whatever mix-up you want to make. The MiG-21bis did get a small nerf in the last patch, it loses a bit more speed. It's not horrendous, you don't really notice it that much, but it is there, and I do want to warn you about it. Really not much to talk here. It's very average. It's very consistent. I don't think it's the best plane, but it's not the worst either. It's one of those premiums where I say it's good because you can circumvent the high tier grind, but the plane in itself isn't that fantastic overall. It's pretty average. Then we have some helicopters. I mean, if you want a helicopter, go ahead and buy it, but I have no clue on these things. And then we have the Su-39. All I'm gonna say is just no for RRB. Definitely not. There is not a single reason to buy this thing, considering the MiG-23 exists. Yes, the MiG-23 might be nerfed. It might not be as good as it was, but it's definitely going to be better than the Su-39. Unless you just want to rock the Vickers and spam them in the head-on, then yeah, it can be pretty funny. But personally, I don't think this is worth your money in RRB. For Tank RB, I honestly couldn't tell you. Then we have one of my old favorites, the Kfir Cnard. And the Kfir Cnard is pretty good, and it doesn't really matter how you fly it, as long as you're not actually ground pounding. Bombing bases in this thing is actually valid, and I hate to say it, but it is. As a fighter, it's pretty good. You're very fast, you have good acceleration, it's decently maneuverable. Just be careful that you don't blast your wings off in a high G maneuver. And of course you have the two AIM-9Gs. Now the Defas or the Aidens, they're not that great, in the same boat as the Mirage F1C that I mentioned earlier. But it's a very good grinder. The main issue is that Israel doesn't have that much to grind right now. Now the BAS and the improved BAS have pretty shitty radars as of right now, and are not really worth your time. But you still have 11 days and 17 hours, so by the time the pack almost goes off sale, maybe they have changed it, and then you can revisit it. If the F-15, the Balzers, actually get buffed a little bit, this might become pretty worth it. But as of right now, I would say skip it. If you really want to grind Israel, this is a very good premium overall. If you just need a grinder, it's fantastic. I'm just gonna say, in Israel, there is not much to grind that is worth your time, at least as of right now. Because something like the Nets at 12.3 is also not going to be fantastic, for a very simple reason that you're gonna be up tier to 13.0 almost every game. And then we have the F4 junk. And well, when I was talking shit about the F4S, this thing is even worse. Now, I can show you. I'm actually going to go into the game here and show you just how sad it really is. Because you don't have AIM 7Fs, you get sky flashes, which, well, yeah, they track off the rail, but that's about where it ends. Now, let me just show you real quick. You also need the massive gun pot. The flares get popped up above, and you don't have many of them. And overall, this plane it's a massive skill issue. I cannot recommend this thing in any stretch of the imagination, especially now we have the Bison. Now, yes, it's the year of the Bison, blah, 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 blah. It's not the best plane, but it has pretty good missiles. It's a pretty decent grinder, and I made a video on this thing earlier this week. Yes, it's full price, but I'd rather pay $60 or $70 for a plane that is at least consistent than pay $35 for something where I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna buy this anyway a few weeks down the line. I would personally say just wait for the Bison to go on sale. The Tornado F3 late is not worth your money either. It's like the only top tier premium or the top tier right now that is actually worse than the F4F Ice. It is absolutely cheeks. Video on this thing pretty soon, but it's absolutely horrendous. And the Sea Harrier isn't good, the Tornado F3 isn't good, the GR7 is, yeah, it's okay, but you know, it's nothing to write home about, especially now we have the AV8B Plus and stuff in the game. The Tornado GR1 isn't good. Yes, the GR39C is pretty damn decent, but you can also just buy the J35XS and grind the Swedish one. This is not worth it. Trust me. It is not. Just skip it. Please, for the love of God, don't touch this plane. It's one letter away from being called the F4 junk, and that is definitely for a reason. And then we go to the F4 EJ. Now we can actually go straight back into the game, because I need to show you something. It's almost as sad as the one that well, it's actually as sad as the one that I just showed you. And before I used to say, well, at least now you don't have to go through the Japanese grind, and it's horrendous because we have the F104J doesn't have flares, T2 doesn't have flares, F1 doesn't have flares. Then you have to fly the horrendous F4EJ, which you have to do anyway if you buy it, so Doesn't really circumvent it, but at least it makes it quicker. And then we reach the F4EJ Kai, which is, I don't want to say okay, but it's like semi-flyable. It's like in the same boat as the F4S, but better radar, better missiles, worse airframe though, but at least it gets an internal gun. And then you can start cooking with the F-15J, the F-15JM, and the F-16AJ. But to get here takes quite a bit of willpower, and I used to say, well, the F4EJ will speed up the worst part of the Japanese grind. But we have this thing now. It's a squadron vehicle, and I would personally just wait until you get it for free, basically. And then you can buy a talisman. Now, the talisman is 3,000, and I'm not sure when this goes on sale, if even ever. But even then, for 3,000, this is a much better pickup. Because you will be able to grind rank 6, 7, and 8. And the rank 5 and the props isn't that bad to fly. So if you buy something like the J6K, which is completely over-tiered, but it's at least somewhat okay. And it's not 6.3, it's actually 6.7. You can buy the J2M5, for example, or the A7M1 when those goes on sale. And then you can grind rank 5. And once you have rank 5 grinded, you can get the F5E FCU by that time. Hopefully, if you have like an active squadron, you can talisman it. And then you'll have a much cheaper alternative and a lot more fun, because this thing is way more fun than the F4EJ ADTW or the EJ will ever be. And then next up, we have a few extras. We have the A6E TRAM. And the name kind of implies it. It's a tram. It's a ground pounder. In Araby, get the F5C or the F4S. You have to sacrifice a pylon for a gun. You have to sacrifice a pylon for missiles, obviously. But you can only run 3 missiles and 1 gun, or 4 missiles and no gun. Personally, for Araby, I wouldn't get it. Tank RB, I think it's quite okay. But who am I to tell you that? Then we have the F104S Starfighter. And I'll just go straight back into the game here. This thing right here is kind of okay. And Italy is kind of stacked. You have the ADF, the Tornado if you really want it. You have the AV8B+, which, you guessed it, got AIM 120s. And you have the MiG-29, which is kind of okay. It's pretty good. It's not fantastic, but at 12.0 it's pretty solid. And you get the JS39C. And yes, it also gets AMRAAMs. I haven't flown it yet, and I still need to make a video on this thing, so I cannot tell you. I haven't flown it. But the F104 TF is quite okay. I mean, it's not fantastic, but at 11.0 you are definitely quick enough. You have a good amount of missiles, because you can strap 6 AIM-9Js, I believe it is. AIM-9Ps even. Not a massive difference, other than the fact you can radar slave them. But yeah, it's an F104 with missiles. It's kind of in the same boat as the J35XS is. And then last two, we have the A5C, which is much better than the J7D. Now I'm just gonna compare them both at the same time. The A5C is both cheaper and a better grinder. And why is that, you might ask? Because the J7D is essentially a 10.0 airframe at 11.0, because it gets slightly better missiles. Now you get Magic 2s or PL5s. The PL7 is basically a Magic 1, sorry, not a Magic 2, a Magic 1. And this is going to be a PL5. PL5s are probably going to be better than the Magic 2, so I would run 4 of them now. You can also run 2 and 2, it's a little bit of preference. But this airframe just is, it's absolutely terrible. You shit out speed so quickly. It's the same BR as the MiG-21bis. And yeah, it gets slightly better missile, but they aren't even all aspect. And the airframe is just absolutely terrible. This thing does not have a functional engine, and you will find yourself without energy very, very quickly. And then for the A5C, it's actually pretty decent. Now, it's basically a fat MiG-19 at 10.0 with countermeasures. The matchmaker is a lot more forgiving. You get 2 Magic 1s, which are still the same as on the J7D, but it's at a lower BR. You might run into planes without flares a little bit more often. And then these missiles are the freest kills in the world. Good climb rate, decent speed. Okay amount of countermeasures, only 18, but they are large caliber. And they are pretty consistent. And you can talisman something quite easily here, because we have the F5s if you want them. You have the J7E, which is absolutely fantastic at 11.0. And it's going to be a much better grinder than the J7D. And it's going to be basically as expensive, because the GE that you get from the A5C, you can use to talisman the J7E. And it's $5 cheaper. Now yes, you'll keep more GE for yourself if you get the J7D. But personally, I'll get the A5 and Talisman the J70. And that's it for the planes. Let's take a quick look at the tanks, which I'm going to speed run right now. Now, personally, I don't have a clue, again, but I trust this guy with my life, so I'm just going to be reading what he typed to me on Discord and hope that it's accurate. Let's get started. We have the MA1A Hazey clickbait, and the clickbait is a very good tank, but buying into 11.3 is not really worth it, especially when there are better options to buy, like the KVT, and we'll get to that in a minute here. Then we have the Leopard 2A4. It's still one of the most well-rounded and strongest MBTs that's above average or better in every regard. Then we have the Terms, and the Terms is still a decent tank with good optics and gun, but otherwise is not the most mobile and faces a lot of good tanks, like the 2A4 Premium Lamau. There is still better options on the sale if you don't mind losing the ability to resource tier 8, which is only 3 tanks anyway. And then we have the CV90-105. It's still a very good tank if you want to grind Sweden, but it's very much a glass cannon with good shell, good optics, reload and mobility. The only downside is that the Premium 2A4 exists, and it will not go on sale right now, but it might go on sale later, and it's a much more forgiving tank. But the 90-105 is still very good. Then we have the KVT, and it's basically the MBT equivalent of the M18. Very fast, excellent reload, but mediocre to average armor. That isn't bad, but best not to be relied on. One of the best well-rounded choices for high tier grinder in the US ground tree. Next up is the T55 AM1. It's a very solid tank that is just decent at most things and not exceptional at anything other than maybe armor in a down tier. This is my pick for Russian tank pack, as it can resource the entire tree except tier 8, which is only 3 vehicles anyway, and is at a much more forgiving BR. Next up is the Challenger DS. It's a solid tank that's honestly quite a bit better than its reputation of being mid. As you get one of the best guns at the tier with a good reload, the main downside is the mobility. It's not bad, but it's a heavy boy and it's spotty armor, so it's more of a defensive tank if that's something that you are looking for. Then we have the Leopard 120, and it's a decent glass cannon, but it suffers the fate of being 9.3, which simply doesn't exist thanks to the 10.3 premiums. Overall, the Leo 2 pack is definitely worth the extra few dollars. And then next up is the Type 96A, and it's almost the same as the Terms, but overall has much worse armor, but it's slightly better in the mobility department and better gun handling. An okay premium if you like Russian style MBT gameplay, and there's not really that many options for China anyway if you do want to grind them. Then we have the XM1, which was once quite overpowered, and the summary is, it's shit, get the KVT. Thank you Hazey, completely clear. And then lastly we have the Type 16. It's very quick, solid premium for Japanese grind. If you like wheelchair vehicles or a glass cannon with mediocre cannons, then it's a solid pick. And that's basically it. Don't forget to use a discount code, doesn't matter if it's mine or someone else's. Get you a decal, support your favorite creator, and it gives guys in a little bit less money. Thank you all for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.